Okay, people, it is. So I'm in the central time zone, just so you know. So it is 4 o'clock here in the central time zone. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is 2 o'clock on the west coast of the United States. Wherever it is you are, either listening to the recording or watching me live, welcome to another YouTube Live. It's Friday, June 6th. So good, so much to talk about today. Ironically, just finished in Montana this week teaching doctors, which is doctors and healthcare administrators. And that was fun, teaching them leadership stuff, teaching them meditation, teaching them grounding, teaching them leadership skills, all that kind of stuff. Really have fun with that. As you know, I do a lot of things. And questions coming up lately. Um, so I'm working with teenagers, working with young adults, working with some children who frankly are starting to push back on this whole idea of why would I ever, why why would I ever put this down? Why? Why? Everything I need is here. Everything that I need to know is here. All my friends are here. School is here. I'm on screens. I have video games. And when I suggest meditation or connecting with their intuition, um, they not some are dialed in. Don't get me wrong. Very small percentages are like, why? My whole life is online. Everything that I do, particularly since COVID, is online. My friends are online. My social media is online. My school is online. My video games are online. My classes are online, and everything that I do all day long, every day. Now, the cool part for parents out there, and I want to talk specifically to parents. This has become, well, I won't say a weapon. There is no greater impact on a child or a teenager, whatever you decide as a parent when you give a kid a phone. I don't, and people say, what's the age? You know, Dr. Scott, tell me the exact age that I should give a kid a phone. I don't have that answer for you. I know that my grandchildren are 7 and 9. They have iPads, they don't have phones. And a lot of kids get iPads before they get phones. I think phones, somebody said 12, 13, mid early to. Now I know this is going to set a furor of controversy of my God, kids should, because I've seen 2-year olds with phones, playing with phones. And in the clinic, I mean, literally, they've got a phone. I don't think it's theirs, but they've got something that they're playing with, whether it's dads or moms or brothers or whatever. And then I've seen some families from certain more religious households that you don't get a phone until you're at least 16 or until you're 18 or whatever. So and I'm not going to make that decision for you. The thing I want to talk about today, we have our class coming up on June 28th about STFU. It means shut the F up, stop talking, stop analyzing, stop thinking so much. Amber's here, Josh is here. Oh, thank you, Josh. Apparently my skin looks pretty good. That's nice to hear at my age. Um, People want to know why. Why would I shut up? Why I don't want to shut up? I want to analyze. I want to be in my head. And we're going to go through some of the statistical and psychological reasons why, but we're also going to talk about the consequences of this. Now, I am with you. I have this all the time. I'm on, this is funny. I have this in my hand. I have you guys here, and there is a TV right over there that is on. The sound is muted, but there is this. I've got one, two, three screens just in my purview right now. And we're going to talk about the cost of all this. We're going to talk about the consequences, particularly for you who want to be more mindful, who are struggling with anxiety, who are struggling with just information overload. Um, it has not changed. Uh, Meditation and quieting the mind and getting grounded and centered and peaceful. Kelly Dean is here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to out you. I know I got a message from you. I haven't had a chance to respond to it yet, but I will, and we'll get together. I look forward to it. I don't know about you. I'm going to throw out some statistics, and I always reference my mother. My mother died in 1984. She was born in 1913. She was 48 when I was born, I think, and or 47 something. She's in her late 40s. And in the 50s, when I was born, women were not birthing no babies in their late 40s. Now, she also smoked cigarettes and she drank alcohol throughout her pregnancy and produced this. My brother's joke, the older, wiser Dr. Scott said, and he would tell you this. I'm not sharing any stories out of school. If he were here, he would say. So the family joke is, I'm the youngest of three, and the family joke is, yeah, because my brother's a psychologist, very educated, very, super duper smart and well read and all that stuff. And at family gatherings, and now that he's a little older, he's repeating himself. But the favorite joke that he has is, yeah, our mother smoked and drank throughout her pregnancy with Pat, you know, and when he was born, we just weren't sure, is he going to be, developmentally disabled or is he going to be a genius? Then he pauses for effect. And we're still not sure. He thinks it's the funniest thing going. Because, women having babies, we learned in the 60s. Now, I think we knew before the 60s that smoking wasn't good for you, but the official stuff came out in the 60s and 70s that smoking is bad and drinking is bad. Women should not drink any alcohol. And she did drink throughout her whole pregnancy with me, which is probably why I have such a fine appreciation of bourbon. And I still have some, I don't smoke and I've never smoked, but I have a weird, comforting thing with people smoking. So few people smoke anymore, but I was somewhere, I was at the clinic and one of our staff was out in the courtyard having a cigarette. And I walked out there just to get some fresh air and I got a waft of that secondhand cigarette smoke. It was comforting. It's genetic. I have never smoked. Everybody in my family smoked. Um, so anyway, I was either going to be what he called no, mongoloid. Down syndrome in the 60s or 50s was called being a mongoloid child because of the facial structure. It's not called that anymore. It's called Down's syndrome. And so his joke is that I was supposed to be, have Down syndrome, or I was going to be pretty smart. And we're still not sure. And that's pretty funny, according to him. Now, I wonder what my mom would do with all of this. She had a TV and she had a phone. And her phone, oh, Amber's a 30-year former smoker. That's great. Congratulations. Um, she had a TV and a phone. That was it. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. She died in 1984, just on the eve of all that stuff happening. We have some friends who are in their 80s now who are less than comfortable with technology. We have one friend who, doesn't really know how to turn her phone off. We've noticed that when we call her, it goes right to voicemail. There's a setting that she would have no idea. And so we will show up at her place. I will take her phone. I will reset it. I'll clean it up, probably update the software or something. And you know how it goes. People who are at a very advanced age who just did not grow up with that stuff just don't really have any idea about what to do with it. Now, if you think about, now some of you are old enough to remember this. Remember the Sunday newspaper? It was a really thick Sunday newspaper. My mom would get the Sunday newspaper and read it from cover to cover. I would take the comics, and when I was a kid, and she would take everything. I mean, she read all the ads. She read everything, and that was her morning ritual on Sundays. She'd drink her Sanka, which was a decaf coffee. She'd sit cross-legged on her bed, and her cigarette and her coffee, and she would peruse the whole. And the papers then in print were thick. The Sunday newspaper was very, very thick. So you need to understand that there was back in the day more information in a weekday edition of the newspaper than was available in all of the world before 1750. So 1750 was the invention of the printing press. And before then, it was, and we've talked about Huna, we talk about oral traditions. There just wasn't that much information. And that a lot of times people listened to their gut. They looked at the stars. It wasn't about information. It was about your connection to the earth. And I'm not promoting that we go back to that, but I think with all this information now, there was There were two laws that happened in the late 20th century. One was called Moore's Law, that a guy named Moore, Moore, identified the rate at which processor speed was doubling. And when they stopped counting after the year 2000, the processor speed of computer chips was doubling at a rate of about every 90 days. And then they just stopped because computer chips and software, and now we're into AI and nanotechnology, and there's no end in sight. There is literally no end in sight. Now they're talking about quantum computing. So if you're thinking, okay, well, we just need more information, congratulations. Now you have AI that can draft everything for you. You have AI, and I don't believe it's going to take over the world. A cool Nevada, just I know you're not, many of you are not in Nevada, but Nevada passed legislation that they will not permit AIs to be therapists. There's literally legislation that said a therapist must be a human person. It cannot be a computer generated model, which I thought was kind of cool and kind of cute, really. I read the law that they forbid anybody to market AI therapy or market, some robotic kind of thing, which is kind of cool. Um, there was another law in the late 20th century that talked about the amount of available information. This too stopped counting at 90 days. Now listen carefully. The rate of available information on the planet was doubling every 90 days, doubling the amount of available information. Now that was in probably 1996 or 7. Think of the last 30 years, what's happened to information, right? Just think of YouTube. Think of your email. Think of, I don't know about you, but every time I buy something, they want your email address. And I don't know, and I'm going to probably ask for some coaching around this from some of you younger folks. I have bought some new clothes because I've lost 147 pounds in the last 2 years. And every new piece of clothing I bought one Patagonia jacket. I get an email every day from Patagonia. I bought some new sweats. I get an email every day, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 emails a day from some of these vendors. And it's getting to be, and this is weird because how do you navigate that? I like the vendor, I like the store, but I don't need 5 emails a day. I just don't. I never will. I will never need 5 emails a day from Patagonia. Now, I know there's probably a way to go in and change your preferences. I don't want to put it into junk because I do like the vendor. I like the store. I like what I'm getting, but the amount of available information, I don't know about you, but I'm fielding 3 to 500 emails a day. Now, it's all junk. Don't get me. I mean, and I know you know this. There may be 30 or to 50 emails I need to actually address, but on top of that are 300, 400 other spam and Nigerian princes that want to marry me, which is very flattering. Um, and so, anyway, um, the amount of available information is doubling at a startling rate, and we don't even know anymore. We've lost count. So think about your own relationship with information. How are you navigating, all of the different ways that you can receive information? Now, what we do know also statistically is that there's more, I think the reason I'm so busy is that there's more anxiety, more depression, more mental illness among certainly youthful populations with all of the social media and that kind of thing. Now listen to me carefully. I'm on social media. I'm doing more social media than I ever have. Josh helps me with that. I believe in it. I like it. I like my social media. I can get lost in YouTube. I can get lost in Instagram scrolling and that kind of stuff. I do have some clients that call it doom scrolling. They get into some sort of a jag about something, Ukraine or whatever, and they just can absolutely go crazy. My point is that what we're noticing in the human condition is that humans that are not taking any time for nature, not taking any time for time out, for grounding, for earthbound kinds of things. I do get a fair number of new patients that come to me when I say, okay, I'm going to send you a recording. It's a 7-minute recording. And they say, well, I don't have 7 minutes. It's like, well, that's the problem. If you don't have 7 minutes to be quiet, well, can I do it on the treadmill? You could. Please don't do it while driving. It's intended to put you down, put you to sleep, or hypnosis. But let's talk about that. What is the can't stop, won't stop thinking, won't stop energizing, won't stop analyzing, won't stop ruminating, because that in fact creates anxiety. This idea that we're going to miss something, this idea that we're not safe and sound in our own skin, this idea that if I only had more information, that somehow everything would be okay. My joke, and if you've heard me say it before, if this was only about information, we'd all be thin. No one would smoke, no one would have any problems, everything would be perfect. We now know that we have enough information about anything you want, pro or con. You could, I don't know if about you, but if you look, search anything that you want to find out about. You are going to get pros, cons, middle of the road about everything. You can find data to support any point of view, period. You want to think the earth is flat? We got the flat earthers. You want to think that ancient aliens built the pyramids? We got that. And the challenge and the thing that I'm going to suggest to you, and we'll get to the reason to shut the F up eventually, you must be a judicious consumer of media in order for you, because if you are looking to media to manage your mental health or to manage your spiritual health, or let alone your physical health, no, good luck. It is a toxic wasteland out there, and I know that that's strong, but understand that media by its nature makes money by sensationalizing everything. I am fascinated by Asian. I think because I've had so many past lives in Asia, I'm fascinated by Asian cultures. I'm fascinated by Japan. You know, I go there. China, I've been there, and I love reading about Egypt and all this kind of stuff. I'm just a voracious reader about those cultures. And apparently, China is collapsing, and China is the greatest economy in the world at the same time. And you can find that about about the United States too. The United States is collapsing, and the United States is the best in the world. The U.S. military is collapsing, but the U.S. military is the best in the world. And you can find any media, anything to support anything. We had the National Enquirer back in the day that was very sensationalistic, the New York Post, things like that. And now it has gotten to such an extreme. Truly, I use my intuition to make decisions and benchmark what to believe anymore. And I have let go of this idea that anything that I see on the internet is going to be true or right. And what I go back to, and this class that's coming up later this month, is really about learning how to juggle information in such a way that where you start accessing the wisdom of the Akashic records, you start accessing your own innate wisdom. Stop looking outside yourself for all of your answers. All of your answers are inside you. Trouble is, we are bombarded moment by moment, you know, with this. And if you're not careful, it can really, really sway your mood and sway your anxiety and sway your depression. Um, what I've come to know in my advanced age is that we're all human and we're all in this together. We're all the same. Maybe we're all different, but we're all the same. We all have needs. We all are born. We all get older. We all have sickness and we all die. And those four noble truths of Buddhism pervade everyone's life. No one escapes it. I like to say parenting is the great equalizer. I don't care who you are. I mean, some of you know I have a lot of celebrity interactions. I was at a birthday party. Well, I'll tell you, I was at a birthday party for Nathan Lane a few years ago, and Jerry Seinfeld was there. And I talked to him. He found out I was a therapist. He had just had some kids. I don't know how many, a few, two or three. And he spent about an hour talking to me about his kids and asking opinions about parenting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was a lovely guy, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a stand-up comedy routine. He was there and he heard that I was a therapist and that I worked with children. And he was very much engaged in that very humbling, very real child rearing thing that humans go through. You look at anybody, and I know that we tend to sensationalize celebrities. I haven't been following the Diddy trial really very much because I work with a lot of trauma survivors. I mean, I'm peripherally, it's hard to not, but I have been watching the trial. I've been watching the transcripts or anything. But when I look at Justin Bieber, and I look at his trajectory into drug use and, Christianity, and just kind of he was all over the place. Brilliant kid, absolutely brilliant. And I mean, I like him, don't like him, his music. That's not what I'm talking about. This is a kid who clearly exceptionally talented, and I now understand some of the reasons why he went into drug use and why he, turned to God, and why he, it makes perfect sense. And so if you think that Justin Bieber's had a cakewalk, or that his life has been so easy, or you look at anybody, you look at anybody that you idolize, and you think, oh, well, they've just had it so easy. I think Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie may have had some challenges in the relationship department. They adopted all those kids, and if you go much below the surface, um, there's stuff there, that is not unique to them. I don't care whether you're a Kardashian. I don't care whether you're, whoever you are. That we humans all have the same access to the same opportunities. And I know that that's going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm really okay with that. I saw an interview with Morgan Freeman by Don Lemon. Don Lemon was a CNN anchor a few years ago, and he's African American, and he happens to be gay as well. And he was doing an interview with Morgan Freeman, and Don has interviewed me on CNN. If you want to know, I was on CNN a few years ago after the shooting in Las Vegas, and I think Don Lemon is amazing, and I really love him, and I think he's a good guy, and he was really sweet to me, and all that kind of stuff. I have no ill will. He wanted to know from Morgan Freeman, who is a black actor, very seasoned, has been in some of the highest grossing box office movies in history. And if you don't know him, forgive me, but you can look him up, Morgan Freeman. And Don wanted to talk about racism in Hollywood, and he talked about how, in essence, G. Morgan, it must have been, particularly someone of your age, he's now in his 80s, it must have been really hard coming up as a young black man in Hollywood or in New York or wherever you came up. And Morgan just kind of said, I don't know what you're talking about. And they sparred a little bit, and Morgan just kind of said, look, yes, it would be politically correct for me to say because I'm black, I had a harder time. I didn't. I didn't have a harder time. And he goes, and then he pointed to Don Lemon. He goes, and clearly you didn't either as a young black man. You've done very well for yourself. And his point was all of us go through our challenges. It doesn't matter who you are. And if you think the grass is greener over there, I wish you luck. I frankly have done so much soul searching around people I idolize, people I worship, people I look up to, and wonder, gee, wouldn't it be nice, to be them? And then I've had opportunities to work with just amazing people, Tina Turner and Keanu Reeves, and just all these celebrities who I just adore. And the thing I adore about them is their humility. I don't necessarily adore their money. I mean, I would love to have more money. I think we all could. Linda Evans was an actress who was on this show Dynasty in the 80s. And she was interviewed, a very pretty woman. Now, when the show was over, I think it ran for about a decade. It was a nighttime soap opera. And Joan Collins was in it, and John Forsythe. And it's old news now, but she retired. The 60 Minutes or somebody caught up with her, what's Linda Evans doing now a few years later? She said, I retired. And she said, I know it's easy for me to say, but she said, I had all the money I wanted. I didn't want that life anymore. I didn't want the rat race of Hollywood. I didn't want to have to be skinny. I didn't want to have to play that game. And she said, I know it's easy for me to say, but I made all the money I ever would need. And I'm living a nice, quiet life. And I don't even remember the details of her quiet life. She was married and had animals or horses or lived in Texas or something. I don't even know. But her point was that she wanted a life away from Hollywood. There's a new young comedian, Matt Rife, Rife. He's hilarious. He's very young. And in a very short period of about the last 5 years, he's risen very high and made a lot of money. And he now lives in Rhode Island. He bought a big property, acreage in Rhode Island, of all places. And they say, why there? He goes, well, it's got a good comedy scene. And he said, I didn't want the rat race, of all the information and all the striving and all that kind of stuff. There's a Chinese actor that I follow. That I've been on this weight loss journey, and I did the math that I've lost from my highest weight last 5 years to my lowest weight recently, about 140 or so pounds, and I'm really proud of that. And I'm, that is, something to be after a lifetime of morbid obesity, I tend to look at actors, people like Zac Efron or Brad Pitt or pick your actor, I don't care who it is, and they're slim. And I think, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to have Zac Efron's body? Wouldn't it be nice to have Hugh Jackman's body? Wouldn't it be nice to look like Alexander Skarsgård in Tarzan? Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? Then you hear from them. Zac Efron jokes, he goes, I didn't eat a carb for 15 years, and he talks about just the sacrifices to have a body like that. John Travolta, you may remember, was interviewed. There was a movie that came out after Saturday Night Fever, the sequel called Staying Alive, where he was ripped and he was in basically a loincloth for the whole movie. And all of us went to see it because it was John Travolta. Well, a few movies later, there was a movie called Michael, and he played an angel. And I think, like him, don't like him, John Travolta has a career that spans 45 years. And he's still around and he's still great. And never mind his personal life. And an interviewer said he was being interviewed for the press junket for Michael, the movie Michael, where he played an angel that comes to Earth, and he's got a pot belly. So the female interviewer points at his pot belly and says, "Oh, did you gain weight for the role?" And he looks down at the belly and he goes, "What, this? No, this is me." Well, but you were so lean and you were so this and you were so that. How could you have let yourself go so much? And there was a big pause because it was kind of offensive, really. And he goes, "Look, do you have any idea what it takes to maintain a body like that?" Yeah, I had that body. And that was 5 hours a day, 7 days a week in the gym for a year. I have kids. I'm a husband. I have children. I don't have the interest, the motivation, the time to spend 5 hours a day with a trainer and eat chicken breasts and broccoli. Alexander Skarsgård's another one. He got in shape for a role for this movie called Tarzan. Tarzan, of course, Edward Grace Burroughs. It was a remake of the movie, and he was ripped. He was and he tells a story where he was in training, and of course, it's the studio basically says, okay, we want you for the role. Now you have 5 months or 6 months to get in shape for the role. This is what we need you to look like. We need this body fat percentage. We need you to look like this in a loincloth, whatever it is. And he goes about the task of getting the trainer. He said he showed up and it was like 5, 6 hours a day in the gym, 5 to 7 days a week, similar kind of thing that they do. And he showed up with the trainer and he just broke down. He just broke down crying, like sobbing. And the trainer said, what's going on? He goes, I just need pasta. I just need a carb. So the trainer was really smart, knowing that he's not going to lose anything, it was New York, took him to an Italian restaurant, got him a big plate of pasta, and he cried eating the pasta and the garlic bread, because he hadn't had a carb in 6 months or something like that. My point is, there was a Chinese actor who is lean. He's a jujitsu master. His name is Wang Jingyu. I'm not going to go into him, but I watched some behind the scenes outtakes of a movie that he did a few years ago. This guy is lean and he's Chinese and he's, very, very lean and fit looking like a martial artist, and they were doing the thing and behind the scenes, he had gained, I mean, maybe 10 pounds or 15 pounds. And he had a little bit of this going on. And the director is saying, I can see your double chin, straighten your chin out. Then it would be exasperated. He would lean back and he had a little bit of a tummy. I mean, a little bit of a tummy. And the scrutiny these people are under is absolutely insane, absolutely insane. And there are those who don't want that anymore. And so this is all the way around that if you're chasing these dreams of wealth, these dreams of how you look. Now, I just did it. I'm so glad. I used Zepbound, and I'm still using an injectable drug. You've heard those GLP-1 drugs. It has quite literally saved my life. I was 340 pounds, 350 pounds a couple of years ago. And then there are people that, well, that's cheating. Well, okay, it's cheating. It was a lot healthier than, fasting. It's a lot healthier than the, grapefruit diet or all the other million diets that I tried. And it's actually, both my chiropractor recently and my urologist, they had my primary care physician have declared me healthy. I went to the chiropractor. I didn't need to be adjusted. He did his x-rays, he did his exam, he goes, your body is in perfect alignment. I hadn't seen him for 6 months. Do the math. I went to my urologist, which is the annual checkup because I had bladder cancer. He says, your PSA is undetectable. He says, you are doing so great. You have no health problems left. I mean, you're a 65-year-old man, that kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out when to be done and just declare the weight loss done. I don't know. That's more of a psychological thing. The bottom line is we chase these dreams and again, I'm all for having goals. I want you to have goals. I want you to have aspirations. I want you to be the best version of yourself. The thing that concerns me is I don't think you're going to find it on the internet. I don't think you're going to find it on Instagram or Pinterest. I don't think, and again, you decide who you are based on your values, based on who you believe yourself to be. And what I'm learning and seeing, because I have this weird anecdotal research every week of people coming into my office, this sounds so hokey, but kids, and I work with very small children all the way up to elders, are losing sort of a moral compass or losing a moral compass. That's too strong. I think that we still know what is right and wrong, but I think that what is happening it seems to be all about the money and all about the fame and all about the fortune. And I do have quite a number of, in the 90s and early 2000s, I was going to be a rapper. I had lots of young of all ethnic backgrounds, going to be a rapper. Well, now it's going to be everybody's going to be an influencer. They're going to have a YouTube channel, and I think I have 79 followers or something. And they're going to have a YouTube channel, and they're going to get rich. And I do know, that I work with people in the sex industry, and I do know people who come to me for therapy and for hypnosis and for all the things that I do, who work in the sex industry. That shouldn't come as a shock to you. I'm in Las Vegas, And this one young man I've got, he's 19 now. He might be all of 20. And he's making $100,000 to $200,000 a month on OnlyFans and these other platforms. OnlyFans is a kind of if you don't know, it's a kind of an online. It's not porn, but it's more like you put your pictures online, and people pay to subscribe to them. They're a little bit racy, and then if you pay a little bit more, you get more racy, and then you have tiers of raciness, and you can subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And this young guy knew and I only met him a year ago. He's been a client for about a year. And he knew that he wanted to do that. He's a cute young guy. He's very well built. And when he was 18, literally on his 18th birthday, and his parents were supportive, and he started this online account, and it has just skyrocketed. And he makes millions of dollars. There's another guy that I'm thinking of that I don't know personally, but he's been doing it for a few years now, and he makes probably $10 to $20 million a year, and he never leaves his house. He just takes pictures of himself, does videos, does fetishes, and it's all sexual, by the way, just so you know. It's all appealing to a sexual audience. And I don't know. I do look at, like, what does it take? How many videos do you have to make, or how many subscribers do you have to have? And it's a lot, you have to have hundreds of thousands of subscribers with millions of views to actually make any sort of money at all. And I've been really appreciative of some of the influencers who will actually be transparent. They'll say, okay, I have 300,000 followers. This is what I made in the last 6 months. And it's not, even at that level, is not enough to live on. It's a nice extra money. There's one lady who's like a financial person. She offers financial planning and advice, and I've looked at some of her stuff. And she is an investment banker, and that's how she makes her money. We're doing it for real. And then she has her side YouTube channel or whatever it is, offering guidance for money. And she's very good, very legit. There's no, it's not sexual at all. But she some months she'll make an extra $2,000 or $3,000, or big month will be $5,000. And again, that may sound like a lot of money, but compared to the young sex worker, it's chump change. And there's always money in the world's oldest profession, apparently. So, what I'm seeing is that we are using this external reality to try to help support us in our goal setting. And we're using benchmarks that are very external to us to say, well, if only I could be like that person, or if only I could have the money of that person, or the looks of that person, or the butt of that person, or the boobs of that person, or the nose of that person. And that's pretty pervasive and stuff. And again, what I'm suggesting is you all have an innate wisdom, and I've talked about this before. Everyone, I believe, is psychic. Everyone, I believe, has an intuitive sense about themselves that is something larger than themselves. Um, if you notice, I don't know if you get any YouTube. I'm going to challenge you. And I'm on YouTube now, so I do see YouTube and I look at YouTube videos like the rest of us. They're doing a lot of polls now, not polls, but like little quizzes, and you can sign up for them. And I don't know if you've seen them. And I don't know how to sign up for them, but I get every day. I get a few quizzes, and they're quizzes on history and quizzes on pop culture and quizzes on things. And I just love knowing stuff, and so I will answer. Some of it's pretty cryptic, and some of it's pretty, name the mountain, the longest mountain range in the world. Well, it's the Andes. I don't know where that came from. I will challenge you to start taking some of those quizzes and polls, but rather than think, just go with your gut. If any of you have taken standardized tests or multiple choice exams, they say you go with your gut first. And then if you're really, really questioning, you go back. But historically, and I've done a lot of test taking in my 18 years of college, the ones that I would second guess myself, I always got wrong. And what I'm noticing in these quizzes now is that I will do these YouTube quizzes, and you can sign up for them. And if you do one, they'll get one. And I like them; they're really interesting, and they're about stuff that I'm interested in, about history and music and food and wine and geography and really cool stuff. And so, what I'm noticing is when I go with my gut and I just blah, I don't think about it. I look at the thing and I click the first answer. Then I look at the multiple. It's always a multiple choice question, and I just scan them. Now, some of them are very obtuse, very esoteric, not obvious at all. Who was the secondary general to Napoleon who won the Battle of Austerlitz? Okay, well, I don't know. Let me look, and I click on it. When I just go with my gut, I'm right almost 100% of the time. When I pause and hem and haw and aw shucks and I don't know and let me think, um, I invariably get it wrong. Now, this is a small example. Have you ever gone against your gut, where your gut is screaming? And what I mean by your gut is your intuitive wisdom. You have a gut feeling about a person. You have a gut feeling about a situation. You are at a fork in the road in your career. You're at a fork in the road with a relationship, and you are trying to decide. Most people will tell me that when they go against their gut, they're almost always wrong. And they're almost always mistaken, and they almost always regret it. And so part of the motivation for this class that's coming up at the end of the month in Idaho, and you can find out the information on the website. It'll be linked in the section below. As I was coming up, as I was learning a lot of spiritual tools, Huna and hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and biofeedback and all my different travels, past life regression, all that kind of stuff, I noticed, in spite of myself, because I'm such a weird, nerdy academic, that I started having more intuitive awareness about things that I really shouldn't know or couldn't know about people, about situations. And I started to do readings and channelings and that kind of stuff. And what I'm learning about that is that we have access to wisdom that transcends the body. We have access to the Akashic records, which is allegedly, the theory goes, that in heaven or on the other side or somewhere, there is a record of all of everything that's ever happened, and that there's wisdom there. We have guides and angels and spirit guides and dead relatives and dead pets. And there's a whole pantheon of gods and goddesses, pick your tradition, where there's wisdom there. And whether you believe in it or not, I know now that there's more wisdom inside of you than the internet has. Now, I am not suggesting you don't look at the internet. I'm not suggesting you throw your phone away. This is the world we live in. What I'm concerned about is that people increasingly are using the internet as the benchmark for everything that's great and holy in the world. Speaking of great and holy, I love that there's a new pope named Bob. I just think that's the coolest thing. He's from Chicago. Bob is his real name, Robert Prevost, and it's probably going to be. I'm not Catholic, but it may be sacrilegious, and I may burn in some sort of a hell somewhere by calling the current Pope His Holiness Bob. But he signed his emails Bob to people that were congratulating him becoming the next Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. By the way, and he seems like such a great guy, and I've heard him talk, and just admire the heck out of that. You know, life of service, Bodhisattva of the earth, speaks all these languages just remarkably fluently, has had a dedicated life of service, and he's now our Pope. And then I say our Pope because I think he serves the 1.4 billion Catholics can't be wrong. And, you know, he's a man of the cloth and a man of peace. And Bob. He signs his emails. But I don't know if he still does, but some of his former colleagues at other churches and places where he was in his coming, you know, when he was coming up, they sent him notes, emails of congratulation, and rather than say, you know, signed your My Holiness Pope Leo the 14th, he would say, you know, all the best, thanks for the best wishes, Bob. And I just love that because we're all the same, even if you're the Pope. The Pope has to do things that we all do. So my concern is that, and I want you to test this. I believe that you have wisdom, the wisdom of the ages, that is not found in a book, that is not found on the internet, that is not Vanderpump or Kardashian related, that you just know things and you don't know how you know them, but you just know things. You will come into situations. And in my own anecdotal research now, hundreds of thousands of people over the last 40 years or so, everyone has had a hunch or a suspicion or a premonition. Everyone. Because I do ask my classes, you know, have you ever had a premonition or a hunch? Everybody universally says yes. This class teaches you how to harness that and how to shut up because the what gets in the way of our accessing the Akashic records, accessing our past lives, accessing the wisdom of the ages is our thinking. We have a conscious mind, we have an unconscious mind, and we have a higher self. The conscious mind is where I'm talking to you right now. You'll notice that I can, and I'm speaking fairly quickly, probably 80 to 90 words a minute. The upward limit of the human voice is 125 words a minute. Now, you may be speeding this up because I'm speaking slowly, and you may notice that you speed up all of your YouTube because you can process information a lot faster than I'm speaking. And children, the reason why children and teenagers are so hard to reach and they never listen is because the kids these days can process probably 50,000 words a minute. You can speak 100. Do the math. I'm not good at math, but 50,000 words a minute is much larger than 100. So if you think you're ever going to be captivating enough to a kid or to a teenager, that's why video games are so satisfying because there's a hand-eye coordination, there's lots of stimulation, there's goals, and then you set goals and you win. And so it's very well, it's very ASMR. It's very meditative, actually. And parents don't like me when they come in. They say Johnny's been playing too many video games, playing too much. He's too much on the PS5 or whatever it is. And I'll say, well, how much? Well, we're limiting it to an hour a day. And I kind of roll my eyes and I say, well, that's not very satisfying if he can't really do much with that. How about 8 hours a day? You know, and they get upset because they don't want their kid to be only on the screens. And I said, well, think about it. I don't mean 8 hours a day, PS5 only, but I'm saying he's doing school online, he's doing his friends online, he's doing Facebook online, doing social media, he's doing dating, he's doing World of Warcraft, you know, and so anymore a reasonable, and I love how our phones track our screen time. I'm going to say 5 to 7 hours a day, your working, waking life, you're going to be on a screen. And I wouldn't feel guilty about it. What I would balance that with is really what the class teaches, which as I opened this video, I'm getting some pushback from students, from children, from particularly the children who want a phone and they come to therapy to try to use me to get to their parents to get them a phone, and they're 10 or they're 12 or whatever. And the parents think I'm going to say no because I'm old, and I'm going to say that the phone is the devil. And well, I don't say that. The phone is a really core aspect of our lives, and it's really a wonderful tool. And it's it's beautiful. I love my phone. I love my computer. I love my TV. I love my iPad. I don't have my Apple Watch on now. I have a mechanical watch on today. I want us to be able to use these tools, but not to our own detriment. And so when I say to a 15-year-old, I want to now it's divided. Some 15 to 20-year-olds come in and they say, I've watched your videos. I want to learn what you do. I want to learn forgiveness. I want to learn how to release negative emotions. I am so full of negative emotions, and my friends are crazy, and my, you know, parents are psychotic and whatever. So an equal number of them come in asking for these tools and techniques. The opposing side actually comes in shaking their head, scratching their head like, why shut up? Why? Why would I need to not be on this? Why would what? Everything I do is online. Every single activity that I do. Now, again, we talk about physical education and playing football and getting out. And it's I'm understanding that kids still are involved in sports and martial arts and things like that. So that's not my point. I'm trying to make a case for meditation and for release work and for forgiveness and for huna and for yoga and for tai chi and for reiki and some of these energetic tools. And they're just looking at me like, why? Why would I ever want to shut down my mind? And I said, well, how are you doing? And they say, well, I'm freaking anxious. That's why I'm seeing you. I said, well, why do you think you're anxious? Well, I don't know. You're the doctor, or I'm depressed, or I have PTSD, or I have ADHD, or I have OCD, or I have XYZ, or PDQ, or any of those disorders. And I said, well, the key, and if you're going to work with me, it's a kind of goes with the price of the ticket. You're going to meditate. You're going to learn to meditate, and you're going to like it. And you're going to listen to recordings, and you're going to do release work, and you're going to do forgiveness work, and we're going to do huna, and we're going to do energy work, and we're going to do past life regression, and whatever fits the bill. And the cool part is I'm seeing a lot of these kids uh, really embrace it. You know, once they get beyond themselves, because when we can measure and quantify a significant reduction in panic attacks, a significant reduction in depressive symptoms, moving away from suicidality into generativity, moving away from generalized anxiety disorder into a kid that's calm, centered, and grounded. The grades go up. They have better friends. They find their first girlfriend or boyfriend. I mean, there's a lot of payoff, and it's a bit of a hard sell at first. So I want to conclude this video. Certainly, we have the class coming up, and it'll, if not this one, if you can't make it to this one, we do it periodically throughout the year. I do want to also ask if we did an online version, would it be easier for people to get to? I did one 5 years ago, I think, an online version. We recorded it, and that recording is available for sale on the website. But it might be time to do an online STFU. It's totally applicable, and so Josh, I know that you're here. We will probably start a waiting list. If people would rather do STFU online, we can do that. That is really easy for me. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I just did a couple Huna classes in person uh, in May, and they were so fun. I do love it in person, but a lot of times, logistically, people just, and I'm taking a CEU training next week, Thursday and Friday, online, all on Zoom for 2 days. So I totally get it. So if you're interested in an STFU class online, just let us know by either sending us a note on the website. We will create some sort of a waiting list, I would imagine, given this conversation. Okay, so I am looking at we've got beautiful skin. We have Amber. We have Kelly. We have 30 years former smoking. The magical reminder each day to open my toolbox and start the day with the 7 minutes. Or other badass courses I just forget. Amber, I teach this stuff and I forget that I have the tools. I will be kvetching or whining about something. I'll be wallowing in my own self-pity one day. And it's usually Josh or one of you guys goes, don't you have tools for this? And I go, oh, yeah, I do. And so understand that just like anything else, it's good to have the reminders and it's good to have that. We do have some really, really great tools and it's really wonderful. And it's not the it's you're not alone. I I'm with you. I was kind of wallowing in a little bit of self pity this morning and realized I could release this. I don't need to hold on to this. So anyway, you kids, thank you for a lovely time today. And we will talk to you soon. I'm just reading the notes. See you soon.